Okay, so now we have to behave.
Yes. Whatever that means. All right, I think I'm going to start. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Business E-Preneur. This is week 4, and we are blessed this evening to have Rajesh Maharaj with us. And Rajesh is an attorney from RHM Attorneys, and he's going to help us with understanding cybersecurity a bit more and the legalities around protecting ourselves in the digital space and the kinds of things that have been happening in the digital space from his legal perspective. There is no screen share tonight, so we can listen to him, and then there will be slides that I will send out with the recording for you to have a look at. So welcome everybody, and welcome Rajesh, and thank you so much for your time.
Good evening, Sherry. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here to do a short presentation on cybersecurity concerns for business owners. It's a little bit of a wide topic, and a lot has to be covered. But unfortunately, if I had to do that, we'll be here for the next 2 weeks talking about cybersecurity issues. What I have done for your members is try to paint a broad picture of what cybersecurity is all about, how it affects businesses, what to look out for, and generally what the legal position is presently in South Africa. So that's going to be the essence of my presentation tonight to your members. So getting straight into it, I'm sure we have all received that notification from our bank warning us of a cybersecurity threat in the form of either malware or a phishing scam or some kind of attack or some form of cyber scam or the other of an encrypted message or an email. We've all received those lovely emails promising us multi-million-dollar payout, and you've received a benefit in a deceased estate in a foreign country, and you have to do X, Y, and Z to get it going. And we're all fully aware of those variants. And as we've advanced as a society, technology has progressed as well, which means that the criminal elements of our society have increased their skills. And unfortunately, they are usually 4 or 5 steps ahead of the law-abiding world. And they're certainly 10 or 20 steps ahead of us as ordinary individuals, because most of us are ordinary individuals. We don't have the skill set of being cyber technology experts. We dabble, we learn, we watch YouTube videos, we watch online training manuals, we get tech experts to come in and assist us. But ironically, we don't have that skill set. The criminal element, on the other hand, they hone themselves on this. They spend literally hours behind their laptop, finding ways to breach our security, breach our firewalls, breach our technology, and with one purpose only: how to steal our hard-earned money and our hard-earned values. So, according to Interpol, and their 2022 Africa Cyber Threat Assessment Report that they prepared for the year 2021-2022, it seems South Africa leads the continent with regards to the number of cybersecurity threats that have been identified. And these are only identifiable threats. Let's not even talk about those threats that no one is even aware of, the silent attacks. And in 2022, they determined that South Africa had over 230 million threats. So that means businesses were attacked over 230 million times in a 365-day period. Let that sink in for a moment. 230 million is literally the GDP of a small country. And that's the number of times that we were exposed to some form of cyber threat. If that is a bad number, here's this one. The second place contestant in that one was Morocco at 71 million. 71 million, which means we were 4 times more under attack by criminals when it comes down to technology. I do apologize, everyone. I do have a slight cold, so every so often you'll see me taking some water to clear my throat. So, of that 230 million detected threats, 219 million were solely email related. Now let that sink in. That means every time you opened up your laptop or you opened up your email server, you were the victim of a cyber attack. Yes, you may have been fortunate, you closed it, you deleted it, your junk mail picked it up, your firewalls blocked it, but you were still a victim because they attempted to attack you. We've also had, as a country, the highest targeted ransomware and business email compromise attempts. Now, that last one, business email compromise, is a big thing in our country. And I'll come back to it a little later on, because that is particularly the one that is of major concern to us as attorneys in the current technological context. That one has actually had an opportunity to make its way through our court system. And it was in the media recently, if most of you paid attention to it, but I will highlight that one for you later on, and you guys can all go and have a look at it. So, unfortunately, we cannot avoid or beat the criminal element. They're better at us than this. Their skills are far more honed than ours, but that does not mean to say we have to be sheep. That does not mean to say we have to lie down and take it. It's time we stood up, and there are things that we can do, maybe not to beat them, but certainly to slow them down, and at the very least, not to be a victim. We have to protect ourselves. Most modern businesses do have cybersecurity solutions incorporated into their operations to increase efficiency, to increase productivity. But in general, administrative, accounting, marketing, communication, and clerical tasks are all performed on digital platforms. And if you are on a digital platform, you are exposed to risk. The whole idea is to do risk management. And excuse me. I do apologize. So most corporations, most organizations, most businesses that have IT platforms or use IT in one way, shape, or form, and we all do it. It's either our laptops, it's our telephones. We're all exposed to the IT world. And we are always, in that instance, exposed to attackers and exposed to malicious characters who want to steal critical data, business continuity compromise, financial expenses, and cause us to have loss of trust with clients. I do apologize, my screen has suddenly frozen. So all of this can be prevented or minimized. Yes, prevention always involves an additional expense on the part of a business and may even involve a restructure of your method of how you do online businesses. But in the long term, it offers reduction in loss of heartache, and it provides you with some security that you would always benefit from. And I've always had this adage, and I always maintain this, that short-sighted thinking that we have as a society, oh, it won't happen to me because I'm not such a large corporate entity, is precisely that, short-sighted. And if we have that short-sighted mentality, we are always going to be the victim of some criminal element. Because remember, criminals don't know whether you are a small business, medium-sized business, or a large corporate entity. They have not been to your premises. They look at your online digital footprint and they see what you do online. All they have to go on with is that footprint, which is a binary to them. It's dots, dashes, numbers, zeros, ones, and twos. And the zeros, ones, and twos are ironically captured in one place and one place only: your financials and your banking account. Once they have access to that information, they know that you are either, with no offense intended, a fat cow to be milked or a lean sheep to be left alone. And invariably, it doesn't matter to them whether you have millions in your account or you have a couple hundred bob in there. If they want it, they will get it. Accepted and arguably larger corporations are usually the main targets of cyber attacks. But recently, in studies that have been conducted by Wits University, UCT, it's been determined that South African SMEs are now becoming the more malleable, and pliable victims. They are targeting the smaller business because they know that with the downturn in the economy over the last few years, big business has taken a huge pounding. But it's the medium enterprise and the small businessman that has suddenly stepped into that gap, filled the breach, and is now building themselves up. So a lot of money is flowing into medium and small businesses. So cyber terrorists, as we will call them, start to attack the SMEs. And this is probably because SMEs do not know enough about cybersecurity or do not invest enough time or money or energy into being cyber aware and cyber conscious and having cybersecurity measures in place and how important those aspects for their business really are. We need to stop looking at these things as an expense because they are not an expense. What they are is actually an asset to your business that allows your business to be able to survive and to protect itself. So questions need to pop into your mind immediately, and you have to ask yourself, what exactly is cybersecurity and why is it so crucial for South African SMEs in particular? Then you have to ask yourself, how can you make sure that you and your business are protected against the would-be acts of cyber criminals who are very, very ingenious? Simply, cybersecurity is the protection of internet-connected systems. As I said, mobile phones, computers, data, servers, networks, USBs, SD cards, anything that has technology written into it is part of an internet-connected system, because if you can plug and play, they can access it from online or cyber threats. That's where it's going to come from. So businesses and individuals alike rely on cybersecurity to protect their hardware, software, and all information stored and transferred online and across the servers. Think about how many times you just casually sent up an email and not realize how much of data from your email can be gleaned. Your name, where you are from, if they can access your IP address, the country you are in, the city you are in, the town you are in, and if they are really smart, the street and address that you live at, all registered against your IP address. So we need to be aware of these threats. We need to be aware of what's out there. We need to be aware of what we can and what we can't do. I do apologize, my screen has frozen again. So in order to understand cybersecurity and the actual need for why we have a need for cybersecurity, we must first understand what constitutes a cyber threat. Most of us think of one or two items, but cyber threats manifest in many ways. It's all about the intention of the cyber criminal and what they hope to achieve by accessing a business's information. While some criminals target money, other criminals target information. And the reason they target information, as we all have read in the newspapers, is to hold people to ransom. Think about the wonderful event where all that data was suddenly dumped on the internet a few years back that caused all those lovely scandals in America and throughout the world. The London Stock Exchange ended up taking a bit of a pounding because information that should not have been released to the public was suddenly made available to the public. So, you always have to look at the reason behind it. In South Africa, and in particular with SMEs, the most common threats are going to be the next few that I'm going to highlight on. So the first one that we're going to focus on is what is called malware. You can always Google the definition, but for the purposes of this presentation, malware is an application that is designed to perform malicious attacks. So they create a program that attacks your system and it basically shuts you down, like a virus. Essentially, that is what it is. Some malware may be used to spy on your devices to gain access to valuable information, and others could give the hacker continuous access to a network. Ransomware is one of the more popular forms of malware, and it is designed to extort a victim, where the hacker encrypts your device and forces you to pay ransom for the decryption key. Now, what's an example of this? You get blocked out of your own emails, you get blocked out of your banking, and suddenly you get a message on your phone, I have taken over your system. I've blocked you out. You can do nothing about it unless you pay me 50,000 Rand. That's basically what malware is used for. It happens more often than you think. A funny situation is it happens usually to gentlemen who end up on the wrong sites, looking at the wrong things and getting blackmailed into doing the wrong activities. So that's a warning to those people. It's a reality. I've had clients who've come to me and who've said, this is my situation. I'm suddenly being blackmailed. I went onto an internet dating site and I exchanged 1 or 2 photographs that I ought not to have exchanged. And now I'm suddenly being blackmailed and threatened. If I don't pay X amount, these things are all going to end up on the internet, or they're going to be exposed publicly, and I do not know what to do. It's a reality. It's as silly as it sounds and as non-business related as it sounds, it will affect your business if something like that happens to somebody who's very popular in a community. The second type of attack is called phishing. And we've all heard this term. Our banks continuously, if you open up your banking app, they tell you, be aware of phishing. Be aware of a phishing attack. Now, phishing attacks are generally where we are tricked into giving information. We've seen this happen. We get a phone call from some random person saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm calling from this company, please provide your ID number. That's a valuable piece of information. The moment you do that, you've given away a lot of information that you ought not to have done. More recently, and something that I've read today, there's a new scam going on with regards to phishing, where somebody phones you up and asks you a random question, but the answer to the question is always yes. And they expect you to say yes. Now, the moment you say yes, they've pre-recorded your voice saying yes. And they use that to access other platforms where you now suddenly become a victim of having applied for a product, or applied for a banking account, or applied for an online credit card. And they use your voice as yes to say you've authenticated that. Now imagine that. Imagine the drama and discord it can create in your life. It's like somebody stealing your ID and changing all the information at Home Affairs, and suddenly Sherry Cade is no longer a middle-aged white woman, but she's some Somalian representative from Somali who's 25 years old, going around doing all kinds of crazy things, or some Asian from Japan doing all kinds. It's a reality, guys. This is the reality we face, and the only people that can protect ourselves from these kinds of things are ourselves. The third type of cyber attack is a password attack. So this one is a little bit more rare, and it doesn't usually involve an interaction. Sorry, I just want to read what Tobeka has said. Yes, we have become very vulnerable, Tobeka, and we don't even realize it. So a password attack is a little bit more rare, and it's a little bit more impersonal to the extent that the cyber criminal doesn't actually interact one-on-one with us to the extent where they access or they call us or they try and interact with us directly. It's a system where they simply log in through via our IP addresses and they bomb us with multiple options of password hacking. Many times you'll find that you'd have an app, and then after a few months, you're unable to access that app because it says the password that you've used is not the password that their system recognizes. And that is because you've been deliberately blocked out because somebody has hacked it. How often have we seen friends of ours put up posts, please do not accept a Facebook invite from me because my Facebook account has been hacked? That's password hacking. That's exactly how it happens. They hack into our passwords, they change our passwords, and suddenly they're impersonating us. Now, can you imagine somebody impersonating you if you're doing a multi-million rand deal with some foreign company? Suddenly, they're no longer doing that deal with you. They're doing that deal with a cyber criminal who's going to make millions out of you. The one that I'm personally fond of is the one that I started off with, which is business email compromise. Now, a business email compromise attack is when a specific person within an organization is targeted. So it doesn't apply generally across the board. They pick an individual in your company And it's usually somebody in your company who has access to financial information and who can authorize financial transactions. How does this work? The cyber criminal or the attacker will trick the victim or the employee into making a deposit into their own account, usually under the guise of a company or associate that the victim may know. Now, this is the example I wanted to give you guys. A recent example of this made the news a few months back when an attorney's firm of attorneys, we are not invulnerable, was taken to task by the courts for not having sufficient protective measures in place to safeguard a client from loss. So what happened in this instance? The client received an email from what she thought was from the attorneys. So she thought she received an email from the attorneys with account details into which she was supposed to pay a huge sum of money. And when I say huge sum, I'm talking a good couple million. And she paid the money into that account. Unfortunately, it turned out that the email itself was forged. And between the time of depositing it and detecting the forgery, the money was stolen. So the client then sued the attorneys for the money, and the court, in finding that the client was correctly right in suing the attorneys, criticized the attorneys for relying on email. Imagine, something we use every day in our business, and we are being criticized for using it. Why? Because it was insecure for the purposes of invoicing the client. Now, whilst this case has consequences for attorneys like myself, it has profound consequences for how companies like your small and medium enterprises go ahead and invoice clients. To invest in encrypted invoicing is ridiculous. It means that you'd have to change your entire module of operation. But there's easier ways to do it. And I'm going to provide one easy example for the benefit of your members. And that is when you send out an invoice to a client and you include your banking details on there, stipulate on that invoice that you will never change your banking details and you will never inform the client of a change in banking details unless it is done by person X or person Y. And always invite the client, if they are in doubt before they make the payment, to telephone through or communicate with person X and person Y for verification of account details. That's one way of doing it. I know it sounds onerous, but I'd rather have somebody phone me 100 times a day to confirm my banking details before they put money in my account than have people phone me 100 times a day to say they paid me and have never received it. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but unfortunately, we live in a country where unfortunately we have to protect ourselves. In fact, we live in a world where we have to protect ourselves. So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is to continuously remind your clients, not necessarily through email, but through other mediums like WhatsApp, or when you have a Zoom conference with your client, just point out to them, guys, please remember, we will not be changing our bank account details. And if we are going to be changing our bank account details, we will give you sufficient notification, but the onus rests on you as a client to also pick up the phone, give us a call, and verify that the change in banking details is legitimate. Because at some point, we always go through a bank change. Sometimes we're not happy with Standard Bank and we want to move to NetBank, or ABSA's got a better package for us. So we decide to shift. But that is when the cyber criminal is at their best, because they wait for those opportunities in changes in companies, and they are monitoring us all the time. Please, guys, do not think for a second that Big Brother is not watching. Think about the number of times you've had a conversation with a friend, and the next thing you're getting all these adverts on your cell phone. When you open up Facebook, suddenly you're getting an advert on how to do horse riding lessons. And you're like, oh, I was just talking to my friend the other day about doing horse riding. Now suddenly you're getting all these. How do you think it happens? We are being monitored. Accept it as a reality. We are being monitored. If you start to open your eyes and remove the blinkers and accept that as a society, we are constantly being watched, we are constantly being paid attention to, you'll be able to protect yourself a little bit more. Consciousness is awareness. That's the bottom line. So the next few, sorry, I got distracted by Tobeka's message. The next few types of cyber threats are more technical. The one that I've got on my list is called distributed denial of service, or DDoS. This usually involves flooding the target, basically us, or the target server that we have, with tons of traffic to disrupt or end their service. They would use multiple compromised devices as leverage against a singular target. It's a very rare thing that happens, and it usually affects your corporates and normally your financial institutes like insurance companies, banks, because they want to disrupt the flow of information and disrupt how that company operates. Then we have what is called the man in the middle form of attack, where the attacker places themselves between our device and the other intended party. So what happens is that they will intercept information that we are sending. And I don't know if you've realized that there are a number of times where a client will say to you, no, I've never received your email. No, I've never seen your invoice. And you think to yourself, oh, they're just being deliberately evasive, or they don't want to pay you, or they don't want to deal with the queries that you've raised. The bottom line is that we'll say 70% of the time when that happens, your email has been intercepted. Your information that you've transmitted has been deliberately diverted to a third party who can then have access to that information and will use it to their benefit. Sometimes, and it's really that you've seen this, you'll find that a contract will fall apart because of a lack of communication. It's not because of a lack of communication, it's because the information that you've tried to transmit has not been received by the other party, which has resulted in a breakdown in communication. That's why it's always good sometimes, pick up the phone, call your clients, call the other party, verify, confirm. The final one that I want to talk about is structured query language injection. Yes, very technical terms. And as I said, these are the ones that don't normally feature with small and medium. They usually focus on larger corporate entities. But because we are now the backbone of the economy as a result of the last 4 years of world trauma, we are also going to be victims of this because the money is sitting with us at the moment. It's with the small and medium enterprises. That's the backbone of the economies of the world. So we are going to become victims. So what's a SQL injection? This is where a cyber attacker releases malicious code into a server. And this malicious code then very surreptitiously in the background starts to extract information. Think of it as a mosquito sitting on your back while you're lying out in the garden on a hammock. And you don't realize the mosquito's there, and it's continuously sucking away the information out of you. And the only time you feel it is afterwards when you suddenly feel a crazy itch. That's exactly what an SQL is. Comes in silently, piggybacks on your server, extracts information, and lo and behold, you are suddenly a victim. So how do we minimize this risk? And more importantly, how do we protect ourselves as best we can? There are a few things that we can do, and there are a few things that we must invest in. And yes, we must invest in it. We don't have a choice. Think a little bit of outlay to save a major loss. You have to change the mindset. So what do? Update your software. I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like this new update that has come out by Apple. It's causing this kind of glitch and that kind of glitch. Or Samsung has got this new update and it's frustrating me because my laptop is frozen, yada, 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 and it goes on. But the bottom line is the update brings your system that much more closer to being able to be protecting yourself and to prevent the hacker from getting in. Because most updates that come along and upgraded security measures that come along are trying to stay in tune with how the cyber terrorist is basically progressing. Remember when I started off, they are here and we are here. But your updated security brings you up slightly, gives you a little bit of an edge, not as much as I would like us to have, but a little is better than nothing at the end of the day. Make sure your devices are always up to date and this will add a protective layer to your online security. I would recommend that you schedule this as either a weekly or bi-weekly event to make sure that your devices are all updated, and check in every once in a while if there's a new update, because those updates do protect you. And I know it sounds like this should be logic, but we get so caught up in our world and our business and our lives that we tend to forget the little things that we should be doing. Invest in an antivirus system. Yes, it costs a small fortune. Norton at the moment charges you something like 1,100 Rand a year to have a Norton antivirus system in place. Yet it's one of the most comprehensive ones. Kaspersky is the other. Then there are a whole slew of antivirus packages that are out there in the market that will protect you to a lesser or greater degree against a viral attack or a cyber threat attack. Apple has their own integrated system, which is why Apple has boasted for years that their phones are impossible from being hacked. At the same time, it has this downside. You cannot download anything onto an Apple phone unless you buy it from them. So it has its drawbacks. But if we start to think money and saving money, you need to think on the converse side of money and losing money. I'd rather lose a little by investing in my own product to protect myself than losing a lot to some criminal out there who's going to go and walk around in a Louis Vuitton that I paid for, that I'm not enjoying. So it's a mindset, guys. You need to change your mindset. So invest in an antivirus. Even the most basic one gives you some modicum of protection, but I would go for the top of the range antivirus system because it's your business, it's your money, it's your livelihood. The last thing you want to do is, rock up one day after you've earned a couple of 100,000 Rand and find your bank account wiped out because you couldn't protect yourself. And always back up your security system. Check your security protocols, check your laptop, check your phones, make sure everything is backed up. Because if it's wiped clean by some digital terrorist, you need to be able to run around finding those passwords so that you can go and do the changes. It's like your bank card. You lose your bank card. What's the first thing you do? You grab your phone, you phone the bank and say, I've lost my bank card, put a stop on it. That's exactly why you need to have those backups in place so that you can access the system immediately, effect the necessary changes in passwords, and prevent the hacker from getting in, which then brings me to the next thing that you need to focus on, which is passwords. Now, a lot of us think, oh, I've got a strong password, but there's no such thing as a strong password. Given a degree of time, given patience, even the most simple hacker will be able to determine a password. If they have the right de-encryption tools on their laptops or their computers, they can break down your passwords faster than you can say blink. Obviously, some of them take a little bit longer, depending on how strong your password is. Follow the means of how to develop a strong password. Passwords must have a symbol, have a number, have alphabets, be in capitals, not be consecutive, not be familiar names, not be easy words to remember. But at the same token, don't create a password where you have to scratch your brain about it and think to yourself, now what was my password? And then you start banging your head on the table. Make a note of it, write it down, but obviously don't write it down where you're going to lose it. And don't write it down where you're going to keep your device with that password, because what's the logic of having a password that you attach to your device? Put it in your underwear drawer or put it in your safe, keep it separate, but know where you're going to go and find it. And it's always a wise idea to change your passwords as regularly as possible. Yes, it's a schlep. If, like me, you have hundreds of different platforms that require password activation, to have 100 passwords is a nightmare. But unfortunately, this is what we are reduced to. If you have one password that you use across the board, can you imagine what a hacker's dream that is? It's literally, he's in nirvana. He's like, whoa, I've hit the lotto. Boom, he's got everything of yours. So multiple passwords kept away safely. Also try and invest in a two-factor authentication system. Now, most of us try to figure out what a two-factor authentication system is. One is usually a handwritten password followed by biometrics. If you can invest in biometrics, then please, by all means, do. Most devices these days come with that. Literally all our cell phones have two-factor authentication. You can open your phone with a 5 or 6-digit code, and you can use your face or you can use your thumbprint. Guys, at the end of the day, it's your money. How you protect it is entirely up to you. Then the next option is a virtual private network, which allows you to extend your device's private network across public networks. Now, what does this mean? Sometimes we go out in public and we're like, "Ooh, I need Wi-Fi. I'm in Mug and Bean. Let me get the free Wi-Fi from Mug and Bean." You do not realize how that opens you up to the rest of the world. But if you invest on a VPN app on your phone, it thereafter blocks access to anybody else from having sight of what you're doing on your phone. And yes, hackers can break in, and that's the back door that they are looking for. Remember, guys, at the end of the day, everything comes down to human error. We have to avoid human error. We are literally the weakest link in the chain, because most cyber attacks happen as a result of human error. And you can only do so much to prevent yourself from becoming a victim. And I'm going to give you a few of them. Never open attachments from unknown senders. You'll get an email saying attached is an invoice. And you think, oh, it's an invoice. Let me have a look at it. But if you don't recognize the person who sent it to you, don't open it. And the easiest way to do that is to scroll to the top when you receive an email. And where the sender's name appears, if you put your arrow on top of it, it pops up with the address. And usually you'll find it's a strange looking email address. That should be the warning bell in your head. I don't know this person. I'd rather delete it. If it's a legitimate person sending you that, they will phone you up and say, "Hey, Sherry, I sent you an invoice. What's going on?" And you're going to be like, "I don't know. I don't think I received it. When did you send it?" And in as much as it's a little bit embarrassing for that kind of situation, I'd rather be embarrassed than lose money. Bottom line, I'd rather be embarrassed than lose money. Avoid giving out passwords and other information via the phone. Sometimes your kids will phone you up and like, "Oh, Mom, what's the Wi-Fi password?" And you've handed it out over the phone, not realizing that you're in a public space and somebody's overhearing you. And to you, it's all innocent. But criminals are all around us. They exist everywhere. And most certainly do not log on to unsecured or unknown public Wi-Fi networks. I know it's tempting to log on to things like Mug and Bean and Starbucks. I'm saving a few rand here and I'm saving a few rand there. But you're not. You're exposing yourself. You're putting yourself out into a limelight that you will probably never recover from. Finally, before I come to the end of this presentation, please, guys, know your rights. Whilst the South African government has put out a very laborious piece of legislation, we do have a Cyber Crimes Act that has come into existence as at 2021. And the Act contains various definitions and provisions defining what constitutes a cybercrime and dealing with offenses relating to cyber crimes, how to investigate them, criminalization of the distribution of data, providing for interim protection orders, how to gather the evidence, regulating the jurisdiction of the courts, the establishment of a specified point of contact. But the problem with this is that it's designed in such a way that it's not preventative. It's usually the situation of chasing the horse that has left the stable and closing the door afterwards. Everything stops with you guys. Because this act is designed for you to run to the police after the crime has occurred, by which time you've lost everything. It's designed for you to go and bring an interdict application, but then you have to know who it was that committed the crime against you. That's impossible to figure out if the guy is sitting in Thailand or he's sitting in Australia. You're not going to be able to get that information. The way this act has been designed is to protect people that, dump information on the internet. Cyberbullying, as it's called, is not actually designed to protect businesses against cyber threats where we lose money, where we lose revenue, where we are exposed. So at the end of the day, as I've said, it all comes down to us. it's our responsibility to be vigilant, to be cautious, and to know that when we're doing business online, we are doing business remotely. It's not like the good old days where you stood in front of somebody and you shook their hand and you could say, okay, I know who you are. I met Mr. Joe Soap, or I met Miss Josephina Soap, and I know who she is and I can do business with them. Here you do business remotely. You have no idea who the person is. Think of the stories, the horror stories you guys have heard about people who bought stuff on Facebook Messenger, only to discover that they thought they were buying a horse, but they bought a donkey instead. And they've spent thousands of rands and they've got nothing for it. Or worse still, they don't even get the donkey. They've just spent the money. My advice to everybody is always, it's better to err on the side of caution. And I dare say maybe a bit of over caution than to be out of pockets for thousands, if not millions of rands. Guys, that's the end of my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say to you. As I said, the subject is huge. If you type in on your Google search cyber crimes, you get over 1,000 hits of what you can read and what you can expose yourself to. Trying to summarize it in 1 hour was a challenging prospect for me, I have to say, but I've tried to do the best that I can to help you guys, to point you in the right direction. Sherry has this presentation that I have sent through to her. She will disseminate it amongst you guys. Read it. If you have any questions or queries, you have my contact number. Please feel free. Drop me a call, drop me an email, drop me a WhatsApp. I'm always willing to assist. Thank you, Sherry. That's me.
Thanks, Rajesh. We really appreciate your time and your expertise. I think you did an excellent job of summarizing where our weaknesses are and where we can start learning to fill the gaps and start protecting us. I know there's a lot of journeying that needs to be made at each of those points for all of us. But thank you for pointing them out. I appreciate your time and your expertise there. Do you mind if I just open it up if anybody's got a question burning,
Sure.
if they want to ask? So
Sure.
if anybody's got a burning question, here's your time to ask Rajesh. Shashika, go for it.
Hi, good evening, Rajesh. How are you doing?
Hi, Shash. Not too good, but I'm here to help you as much as I can.
Okay, so it's something very interesting. Just this afternoon, my laptop was left at another office, and I quickly used my daughter's email, and I'm in her laptop, and I sent an email from her laptop to my laptop, and I promise you it's hours later, and I still haven't received that email. And previously to that, she used to be an online student, and now she's gone back to traditional school. So I'm thinking, I'm sure I probably, have to check it out, maybe whether she's actually been hacked or, yeah. But it's something that's really created an awareness for me to really double check up on that.
Shashi, I'm not a technology expert. My focus is law, but I can tell you that you should have it looked at, and maybe get your IT people to just do a proper firewall test, do a full scan for a backdoor virus that has been tapped into you, to prevent the kind of situation from arising.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly will do that.
Sure.
Thanks, Sash. Anybody else have any questions burning?
I think they're all in a shock, Sherry.
Yeah, I think they are. They're sitting like me going. Yeah, thank you so much, Rajesh, for your time, especially while you've been so sick. We appreciate you still hanging in there for us and sharing with us.
Always.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining. I know that so many of you sent me messages for load shedding, that you wanting the recording. So we'll make sure that goes out to everybody. And yeah, have a good week. We'll see you next week. Next week, we are doing how to create short videos for branding our products and things online. Another important lesson from a great expert. So we're really grateful for that. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Rajesh. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. All the best.
Bye-bye. Good evening.
Bye. Bye.